You will have to please excuse my voice for this recording as I've almost completely lost it, but that does not stop the Nintendo Switch 2 leak train, because we actually had a big pending day, which was Christmas Day, where a user by the name of Next Handheld, who's a Reddit user that popped up out of nowhere that convinced a mod that he had legit images of a finalized retail production unit of Nintendo Switch 2. That was the claim, and they put out a bunch of information based off of what they knew, and we were waiting this whole time to figure out if this user was indeed legitimate or not. And now we do have at least the full context of the images that they provided and some specific deep dive information into these images. So if you saw videos yesterday or even earlier today, like many of them I have seen, some of the information we are going over here in this video will be new since then, because there have been a lot more comparisons in terms of the exact dimensions of these images and why it does at least seem at this point in time that they are legit, with a big asterisk around it, because the person is actually trying to hide the location of where they were taking these photos. So yes, there is some AI at play here, but not necessarily with the actual console image itself and the dock image itself, which we potentially now have a look at roughly what this unit looks like. It's also not clear that this is indeed a finalized retail unit, but it could indeed end up being a mock-up unit that is actually one-to-one with what the final hardware will look like, but something that is handed out to a company like an accessory manufacturer or somebody who would need exact dimensions for the console. And that could actually tie into why this user has said they haven't been able to power on the console or even be able to see anything in terms of its powered up state, essentially play any games on it, etc. So with all of that said, I want to first show you guys this primary image of what we should expect to be the Nintendo Switch 2, at least a dummy model of it, where you do have a 13-pin connector here, which we will actually dive into why that is relevant in a moment. You do have kind of some interesting stuff going on if you look at the background, which we will also walk through in a little bit more detail, and then this kind of unique placement for the plus button, which you would actually expect to be on the you would expect this to be the minus button if you're looking at the Switch the way that I am with this user, how they posted it. You would actually expect this to be the minus logo, not the plus symbol. But if you merely flip the image, like mirror reverse it, this is actually the correct side, but you do have some issues with the Nintendo logo at that point. So we're going to walk through all of this in more detail. As mentioned, a lot of people got hung up on the background and just things looking off with this image, and I do agree. If you just look at it, it looks like the hand and the console itself might be legit, but everything else around it kind of seems a little bit fishy. It just seems kind of like a standard generic background, maybe AI generated and blurred a little bit, where this is what's more in focus, and that is actually the belief. The background is AI generated and something to throw off the tracks of where this user is at when he's taking a picture of this console, but he cropped out his own arm and the console itself. And interestingly, you can see a very nice, secure looking U-shaped kickstand like we've seen from all of the different reports. And it does actually appear like this is going to be a really solid kickstand all in all. I mean, it looks like you could put a lot of weight and press it all the way down and not have any issues or anything. So happy to see that. And then you also have some very interesting images of the dock next. Now, these are heavily cropped, you know, at first glance. We actually do have a more detailed full picture to look at in just a moment. But these are the initial photos that you were seeing circulating online. And this kind of looks a little bit confusing at first, like what is this little port here? But you have to remember that the claim is that this dock picture does not have the back on it. So you would have like essentially the foot of the back clamp would actually still go over this and connect in to this part up here to cover all of this stuff. You do have legit markings that you would have to, you know, have on a electronic product, like all of your disclaimers and FCC notices and things like that. That is all appears to be there, but also very kind of washed out, so it is hard to verify. It's now making more sense why a lot of people were going so back and forth on these images on whether or not they are legit or not. Then we have the big Nintendo Switch 2 supposed logo. Now, some people will say that this looks too dark. However, if you just look at like the current Switch dock that we have today, both on the white and the black model, the logo is not super prominent, so I wouldn't expect it to be necessarily like popping out here or anything. And this is also one of those very up close and in turn somewhat grainy image, but we do have leaker Pioro chiming in that's saying regardless of if the rest of this information ends up checking out or being legit or not, that his understanding, and he just came out and said it, is that the name is Nintendo Switch 2, and that this logo is supposedly very close, if not the exact final logo of the next gen console. So the first time we're seeing Nintendo go with a numbered successor directly to their old piece of hardware. But that is your next interesting look at the dock. And then probably the most interesting one, and this again is one that even User Next Handheld posted, it's all AI generated. What we believe he is referencing is the actual background and not the dock itself. He has swapped out the backgrounds of these photos so you can't tell where they're actually being taken, because if you look back, right here would be the actual table that this photo was taken on. However, in this more detailed picture, which actually people have done the measurements, it does line up perfectly with where the crop was at from the previous photos. You do have just what looks like an AI overlay as far as what it is actually sitting on. But here you get a pretty interesting look at what the back of the dock would look like. I'm assuming the HDMI and USB-A ports and everything that is claimed to be on this would be on like the backside of the here. And then of course you're going to have like that cable cover, and your cables can come out somewhere along this side. I'm thinking the ventilation systems, because of all the vents in this dock. Yeah, probably that claim of it having an additional fan inside to help with heat will indeed be real, and something we will see on the finalized dock. Now you have to keep all of this with a grain of salt, but I'm going to get to why some of these images have become more convincing in just a moment. But rounded back, it does seem like it's a little bit more narrow maybe than what some people would expect. It's going to be hard to see just how narrow it actually is unless if we saw hardware sitting within the dock. But it's not anything that's way too off base as far as what you'd expect a Nintendo Switch 2 dock to look like. Okay, so from here, I actually want to hop over to the CentroLeaks Twitter account, which I will have linked in my description below, because they actually kind of outline some of what I want to spend a little bit of time with. First of all, Pioro, as mentioned, did confirm independently of whether or not these images end up being exactly legit, that the name is Nintendo Switch 2. That also lines up with what a user told us way back when, whenever we were actually talking about what the name might be. A user essentially said from Foxconn there was a U-shaped kickstand. It was one of the first reports we saw of the U-shaped kickstand. He also said the name was Nintendo Switch 2, and now Pioro is backing that up. So it seems like, yes, that is the name, if you were wondering. Now, the theory they have here as far as why the plus icon might be on the wrong side, CentroLeaks has this take that, the first images of the Switch Lite leak before it was announced, which was like pre-production units, essentially had some of the stuff reversed. And that might be what's going on here. I actually think that the person did just flip this image, and they may have actually just added in the Nintendo logo themselves. It seems like they are very much paranoid about getting caught here, and while they're going ahead and risking their job and career and everything in the tech industry, essentially, they're trying to do it for internet clout, but they don't want to get caught. So they may be throwing in some things, throwing off some parts of the image to make it maybe not as traceable to them. But what I really want to spend time in, and this is kind of where I would say it looks a lot more legit than maybe at first glance, is that, so update, the console picture is not AI. The measurements are consistent, and there is no AI tool that can do this. Our take, we think the user used AI to fake the background so it didn't reveal its location, but the console is real. And then just spending some quick time on these two images here. So you essentially have the exact number of pin connectors. That this is a picture of the side Joy-Con that leaked out of that prototype unit, and they have exact measurements and the exact number of pins. You cross compare that with what we are seeing here, and the exact size and the number of pins line up perfectly. So the idea being is that you would not be able to do something like this completely AI generated. Is this maybe still a dummy model and not the finalized retail unit? Absolutely, but it does appear that the dimensions and the connector pins line up flawlessly, which is just something that if this user just used an advanced AI tool to generate this from scratch, would likely not be the case. So again, this is kind of the newer pieces of information that does definitely add some validity rather into this user's claims that this is all new information, and actually not something that's AI, but AI has been used in the sense that they are trying to hide their tracks essentially from where they have posted. So We have, you know, quite a few different things as far as the updates go around it, but really the biggest is this full picture of the back of the dock that we've now supposedly seen. Again, we don't know if it's finalized retail or not, but it does seem like if you have a dock, you're probably not making accessories for the dock. So this might actually be from some kind of warehouse somewhere where it is in pre-production or in actual mass production. And there's a debate around just how legitimate all of this is, but it does seem like I've seen a lot of people start to become more on the believer side of things with the exact pins lining up and with the exact measurements hitting 1-to-1 based off those renders that we saw. So or based not renders, but actual leaked prototype unit images that we saw of the previous Joy-Cons. So either this is a very elaborate, super like took extra time master hoaxer on the internet that's putting this out there, or we did indeed get a look at that Switch 2 console from its side ahead of time. And you just have to remember, in history, if you look back to a lot of Nintendo hardware, just like we were looking at the Switch Lite here, there was a ton of doubt amongst whether or not that was real, and now we just know it is. I think we are going to be in one of those situations where we weren't sure if this was real for 100%, but when it's all said and done, it likely will be. So let me know in the comments down below what you make of all of this. Are you happy with kind of the general design and what we're seeing here with the next gen console? Are you happy with the name Switch 2? As it does appear that's going to be what it is, regardless of if this stuff checks out. And you know, what's your overall take on the look of the dock, the ventilation system, supposedly there being a fan in there? Are you excited for what we've seen of this console so far? Are you a little bit let down by it? And when do you think we're going to finally see Nintendo reveal it? And as my voice recovers, we'll try to make a video actually and some timeline reveal and launch information that has potentially popped up online. I'm still kind of 50-50 on that info as well, but make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn your notification bell. With that, I've been Sunbro, you've been Nation. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.